Hello, everyone. Michelle Marie here with Permission to Be Powerful. And I have a powerhouse for you today. This is Dorina Lanza. And I met Dorina, we're both in a coaching program together. And what I love about this woman is so one of the group of people I tend to call into my world, both in my therapy practice and my coaching practice and just in my personal world, are these very intelligent women. And many of us who are very intelligent have struggled at times to come back home to ourselves, to our bodies, to our vulnerability and all of these other kinds of things. And I've just had such a joy watching Dorina's experience in our group. She's so fucking brilliant. Like she calls it as it is. And I love that about her. So we're going to dive into the subject of power and what that means for Dorina and what she's noticed in herself and in her clients as she's done the amazing work that she's done. And before we start, I'm going to do what I usually do and read her bio, and then we will dive right on in. So Dorina Lanza helps coaches, mentors, and experts who are working too hard on their business. Anybody relate to that one? Transform it to showcase their unique greatness so they can attract their perfect client on demand. She works with high performers to focus who they are and what they do so they can achieve in business and in life what most people would consider impossible. With Dorina's guidance, her clients perform at a level most people only dream of. As a result of working with Dorina at a strategic and operational level, her clients have increased their sales by over $2 billion. Bam. Yes. Welcome, Dorina.
Well, thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. So I asked this question in our pre-interview, but sometimes I'd love to ask it again, when we're sitting together and it's being recorded and we're in this space. What is it that made you want to talk about this subject?
Well, I think that with women, power and leadership are such overlooked topics that they really need to be addressed. And there are an awful lot of powerful women out there, and a lot more women who are powerful but are kind of in hiding. They're afraid to come out, if you will.
Right.
And I think it's important to to share our experiences and let people know that it's okay to share your brilliance, your power, your leadership, and everything.
Yeah. And you have, so you have a lot of tools that you use, right? To help people kind of identify, what is it about you that is your uniqueness or your superpowers? I remember I did an archetype quiz that you sent out to really figure out what are those qualities in me that maybe are innate that I'm not necessarily stepping into and showing in the way that I show up in the world, or which ones are kind of duh, no brainers because I am doing that. But I can imagine a lot of people take things like the archetype quiz and then are like, oh, that I can't be that one, or I can't go there. Right.
Actually, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've never had that happen.
Oh, okay? Good.
And in a couple of minutes, I'll go back and tell you how I wound up getting into all this archetype stuff, which is kind of an interesting story. But my experience has been that people do the archetype assessment, which is a scientifically validated assessment. Mm-hmm. So it's not just some kind of weird quiz thing. It's, been published in Psychology Today and, other similar respected peer-reviewed journals. Right. And usually what happens is, people go and they take the thing and out come their scores and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. Holy crap. That's why I can't stand so-and-so. Now I know, that's why I love to do X, Y, Z. Oh, this is so fantastic. I wish I knew this 20 years ago. And that's generally the type of reaction. I've never had anybody sit there and say, oh, that's not me. because the thing is just so spot on.
Yeah, and let me clarify. So I don't, that wasn't necessarily what I was talking about. I think it was more about like the disowned qualities that we have in ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like the parts of ourselves, like for me, I think I was magician, creator, and ruler. And so I know that ruler for me was kind of like man, like, can I own that one? Can I claim that one? You know, so more like it's clearly there, but some of us have a harder time like owning some of those qualities, you know, because we have a negative connotation attached to it, or, you know, for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's possible. And, you know, whatever your top archetypes are that come out, whichever ones are the most dominant, it tells you what stories you're living. It tells you what your strengths are, tells you what the leadership style is. So never mind what they're actually called. They could be called A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right?
Right.
But it's the strengths and the weaknesses and what to pay attention to, what to watch out for, that you can really leverage once you know yourself. And another reason it's absolutely, well, in my opinion, it's absolutely critical that you understand these things. And I also use something called mind types in addition to the archetypes, which is like an operating system, which we can get into if you want to a little bit later. But once people know themselves and really know who they are, and they can project that out onto the world, what happens is people that believe what you believe, people that are, you know, your tribe, if you will recognize you as one of them.
Right.
And all of a sudden you've got these clients coming to you, and you're repelling the ones that are going to be giving you trouble. You know,
so talk about that, because I know you and I have talked about that before, like this idea that you really do have to piss some people off, and you do have to turn off, like you've got to weed out the people who are just not your people, and you can't do that if you're playing it safe.
Well, yeah, and you know, in the coaching arena, for instance, experts, mentors, and that kind of thing, there's a path that people follow to, you know, from when they get started and when they get to the peak, if you will, if they want to get to the peak of their industry. And people that follow the whole path. Now, yeah, there are some people that kind of jump in the middle because they've been successful in some other field, and they just kind of, you know, come in as an authority maybe. But people start as generalists, and that's where all the problems happen.
Right.
You know, it's like, I can coach anybody. Yeah. And of course I'll take you as a client, even though you know, and yes, I'll charge you $97 a month. Right. And so, you know, if people look like everybody else, they attract God knows who, and the people get sucky results, and they don't get referrals because they're just doing it wrong. Well, the next step is to become a specialist, okay? When you become a specialist, and there are 7 different ways to specialize. We don't need to get into all of them right now, but it's, you know, specialized by, you know, a sub-specialty in coaching, specialize according to a particular demographic, like, you know, women over 50, a regional, of course, now everything's online, so regional isn't so important anymore, but there are a bunch of different ways to specialize. Then once you become a specialist, all of a sudden you can charge more money because you become more of a go-to person. Then the next step is becoming an authority. Well, an authority is better known. And as an authority, people are generally in the low 6 figures, if you will. And an awful lot of people decide to stop at that point, which is fine. But then you can go on to becoming a celebrity, then a celebrity authority, which is the point at which you become the trusted advisor, and you work with people for life. And to me, that's the ultimate goal. Why should lawyers and accountants be the only ones with long-term clients, or psychologists? You know, a business advisor, a trusted business advisor, should also be in a similar position. And with that path, you refine more and more the best clients for you. And, you know, once you get to specialist level, that's when you can begin to apply, excuse me, the archetypes and the mind types. because you want to attract only those great clients, because those great clients are the ones that are going to get the results. And that's what you want. You want people that are going to come in, they're going to work, they're going to get the result, and then they can go on to the next step. Now, something that is very, very much lacking in this industry anyway is a differentiation. Everybody looks the same. You go to these people's websites, and it's like you can't tell one from the other. Everybody does the same thing. So what you want to do is position yourself so that people are buying you, not what you do. And to do that, I discovered that the archetypes is a really good place to start. And if I might tell you the story briefly about how I discovered this.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a how can I say it? Varied background. I have most of a PhD in math. I started out as a medical physicist. I then became an aeronautical engineer. Yes, rocket scientist. I then did my MBA because I always wanted to make money. And I was kind of sick of the science thing anyway. And I became a management consultant, strategic planning, international business. Wound up becoming vice president of a mergers and acquisitions firm. I was also adjunct professor at Northeastern University for 20 years, first in the math department, then in the business school. And then I had my daughter. And so all of a sudden, guess who can't get on an airplane every week? And, you know, because I was working in Italy. I was in Italy 10 days a month, right?
Wow.
And because Italian is my native language, so I was lucky enough to be able to go, you know, work over there. And so I got into network marketing, and I had never heard of network marketing. And I'm like, ooh, this is interesting. Well, if that guy can make 50 grand a month, I sure should be able to make 50 grand a month. So anyway, I get into network marketing, and I've gotten to the top of 4 different companies, built a downline of 4 different downlines totaling about 50,000 people. And I remember when I first got to the top of my first company, New Skin Enterprises, great company. People would come up to me and they go, oh my God, how did you get to Blue Diamond? And they wanted, well, first I did this, then I did that, then I did that. And that's not the way it works.
That's not how anything works.
No kidding. But people don't understand that, right? So anyway, I realized that I had become an attractor of people without knowing it. Okay, so I had put into action what I now teach, but it was like, you know, a light went on. And so at that point, I decided, wow, this is something I have to figure out, and I need to teach this to people. So I kind of reverse engineered it. Yeah, right. English isn't my native language. That's my excuse. So anyway,
it's your story. Tell it however you want.
That's right. So yeah. So anyway, so I discovered these Jungian archetypes. I discovered the work of Carol Pearson, who's the one that developed the PMAI test that I put people through, and she also wrote a book called The Hero and the Outlaw. Talking about branding. She wrote it with a woman who was at Young and Rubicon, I think, ad agency. And they talk about, you know, how you use branding in a corporate environment to target the audience that you want to attract. You know, Mercedes is a ruler archetype, as is Rolex, as is Louis Vuitton. And I'm like, ooh, I look at my pocketbook, I look at my watch, and I'm like, yeah, no wonder my top archetype is ruler, right? So anyway, so I figured out how to teach it, and I started teaching it about 10 years ago, and am now really focused on teaching it to this particular segment of the market, which really needs it, because we need to be able to differentiate ourselves and attract the right people and repel the rest of them.
Right.
And I have a funny story. I participated in this JV thing back, I don't know, beginning of May or something, and they were breaking us into groups, and we had to, you know, practice giving our pitch to the different people. So of course, you know, I gave my pitch, ton of bricks, here I am, and there was this one very, very nice lady from South Africa, and a couple of the people loved the pitch, and this woman from South Africa, she's like, and the pitch was basically repelling the wrong people and attracting the right people, right? And so she goes, well, you know, I would really tone it down a little bit. And so I said, see, you're not my ideal client. She goes, oh, wow, yeah, you're right. So that was really a nice illustration for people.
Right.
Yeah. That's what it is. And also, once you begin, the archetypes is, in addition to knowing yourself, once you know the archetype and you also know what we call the mind type that my friend Ridgely developed, you know what your keywords are.
Oh,
you know all this stuff I have written down, and you know, I'm happy to provide people. You know, the people in my programs get all of it, and you know, you can find bits and pieces here and there, and you know, on my website, and I talk about it a lot. But once you know what your keywords are, once you know what your leadership style is, once you know all this kind of stuff, you're then in a position to do a number of things. You're in a position to know how you should dress, how you should talk, how you should look, and you also know what your website should look like. So it's not going to look like everybody else's, right? Okay, you want a ruler website? Go look at the Rolex website.
Right.
Okay, you want to look more like that, if you will.
So let me stop you for a second, because I know that, you know, this is where this kind of stuff gets really juicy, right? Is like, there's a lot of people who hear things like this and they say, oh, so you're giving me a bunch of shoulds. You're telling me, you know, that I have to do it this way, or have to do it this way, or have to do it this way. And one of the reframes that I like to put on it is like, you are pulling out what is already there, right? So you're pulling out what is already natural to you, what is going to highlight those pieces of you, right? That are really, it's going to be basically like, you don't blend into the background anymore, right? You taking these innate qualities and you're really putting them up front and kind of hyper focusing on a few of them, because like you said, those are the attractors, right? The magnets that will bring certain people into your world. And I just want to reframe that, because I know, you know, I'm a therapist, I'm pretty woo-woo, you know, I'm pretty much about like, everything should be coming from within, right? Yep. And so I know I struggled with the first woman who did my colors, you know, and I found out that I was a fire. I'm like, I don't want to be a fire. Like, oh no, you know, I don't like orange and yellow. Like, I don't want to wear those colors. But the reflection that I got when I started dressing that way, completely different than the way I've been walking through the world. Like it was pretty crazy how different it felt. And it also allowed more of my natural fire to actually show up in my presentation with others. So I love this conversation, because I know that some people can get really rigid about that. Like, oh, but that's not natural, right? That's not, those of us who are more hippified, right? We're like, that's not natural. And my argument is, I think it's both. You know what I mean? Like, you got to know yourself. You got to know what those parts of you that are going to be your magnets for others. It doesn't mean you change who you are.
No.
Right?
What you're doing is articulating who you are and presenting it to the outside world, so that you are presenting yourself as yourself instead of something, you know?
Some nebulous generalist.
Some nebulous thing.
Yeah.
And then when we get past the archetypes and then into the mind types, and those keywords. What's really interesting, and I also teach a lot about neuroscience. That's one of my hobbies. And I also do a lot of inner work, a lot of, guided visualizations and that kind of thing, believe it or not. Okay. The brain has three parts. You've got the reptilian brain, which I call the croc brain. Then you have the limbic system, and then you have the neocortex. One of the big problems is that people communicate try to communicate neocortex to neocortex, and what happens? You communicate to the neocortex, and the croc brain, it bounces right off the croc brain, because the croc brain only wants to know, should I eat it, should I mate with it, or should I run away?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I teach people how to get past the croc brain, and you need to be visual, and you need to be fast, and you need to be different, which is this whole,
you have to be novel to hit the amygdala, right?
Exactly,
Novelty for the amygdala, emotional,
yep.
metaphorical, like all of those.
Yep. And so you design your communication that way, but then decisions, as you know, are made in the limbic system, and they're justified by the neocortex. Well, guess what? Those keywords, I take clients through a process where we generate limbic messages. So, and limbic messages look like, I believe you were made to soar above the crowd.
Right.
We believe in doing the right thing when nobody's looking.
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera. And you want to have those sprinkled around your website, sprinkled around any blog posts or anything you write. You speak. In fact, there's a way to tell people what you do that will make the people that shouldn't be your clients run screaming in the opposite direction. And the ones that should be your clients are going to go, oh, tell me more.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you want. Tell me more is the money question, right?
Tell me more. Exactly. And you do that by using these limbic statements. I mean, nobody's applying this stuff. I mean, I've been pulling this stuff, the neuromarketing stuff, I'm pulling from the investment banking arena and selling big deals. Okay, the limbic messaging I'm pulling from somewhere else. I've pulled all this stuff from all these different arenas and put it together in such a way that somebody can take this stuff and really create their powerful self, if you will, their powerful true self, so they can wind up living the life of their dreams, because their business becomes the business of their dreams, because they're working with people that they love, you know? So anyway, and then I also take people through one more piece for the basic system, really. I take them through another assessment that is really killer, that tells you what your wealth flow style is. You know, some people are well suited to be standing on stage pontificating.
Right.
Other people are better in a back room doing systems, right? And, you know, you put me in a back room doing systems, I'm going to die.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I would shrivel up.
Exactly. Yeah, you too. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, with all of those pieces, all of a sudden, you've got a base to start from. And you can go to that authority, celebrity authority, trusted advisor for life,
right?
If that's the direction that you want to head.
Okay, so let's dive. We teach what we seek to master. And many of us who really have done what you do, right? Synthesizing, taking information from all of these different arenas that we've participated in, that we've taught in, that we've grown through, and putting them together into kind of our unique master system, right? Yep. Why is this so important to you, Dorina? What is your story that kind of underlies so much work that you've put into really honing in on who you are, what makes you powerful, what your challenges are, what to look out for, right? And what's going to pull people toward you. Why is this important?
Well, my mind type, my primary mind type is master. A master goes deep.
Yes.
In anything that they do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if they don't know something, it's because they don't care about it enough to go deep. It's like, I don't know. Well, you don't know that. Yeah, but who cares, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And in looking back, I realized that, and your mind type is, your archetypes can change as you grow and mature and develop.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind type gets installed when you're a little kid and it stays fixed for life. And there's seven different mind types. And yeah, they are related to the archetypes a little bit, but I won't get into that. But I realized that when I was a little kid, I would want to pipe up and say something, and I would be shushed. What you have to say isn't important.
Yeah.
You don't know anything. So I became this master.
Yeah.
And I realized in looking back that probably as a result of that type of treatment, and parents, they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
I mean, I have a daughter and she'll tell you I didn't know what she was doing, and I won't be able to argue. I didn't know what I was doing. But I realized that I have been living the story of the ugly duckling, not because I was ugly necessarily, although I was convinced that I was fat, dumb, and ugly as still, even though I know it's not true, right?
Right.
And I kept getting myself into situations where things weren't working out the way I wanted them to work out. And I realized, looking back, that in some of the situations, I remember as a management consultant, I had to generate my own work because people didn't want me to come in on their teams because I'd just blow everybody out of the water. So I had to go find my own work. And mergers and acquisitions was okay, but the management consulting was really kind of weird. So I noticed the same pattern like the ugly duckling. Here's this little gray thing that's too big and was born to this duck, and everybody's making fun of the ugly duckling, and the kids are chasing it, and every place the ugly duckling went, people would tell it that it was useless. Well, you can't purr, you can't lay an egg. What good are you?
Right.
And I realized that I lived that analogy time after time after time after time after time after time. And then when the ugly duckling finally gets to be with I was going to say the people, but the swans that the ugly duckling really was, all of a sudden he flourishes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I feel like the swan now that has discovered all of this, and it's my mission to bring all the other swans in so that they realize that they were made to soar above the crowd.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm so passionate about this stuff. Which brings me to another point of things that we work on. It's developing your story. Okay, everybody has a hero's journey.
Yes,
and
exactly.
You're familiar with Joseph Campbell and all that. And if you can tell your hero's journey, that will further magnetize your ideal people who will just want to be with you. They want to become like you. They look up to you. Yes. So that's.
It's funny. So the first time I ever really, so I've been in theater my whole life, right? And I've been on stages my whole life. But I had never really done like public speaking other than contests for different little things, you know, when I was in high school and college and things. So the first time I did that and I shared my heroine's journey, I didn't know anything about how you actually like wrap it up, right? Like, how do you get people to see not just the story, but like what it is that you can do for them?
Yeah,
right?
The gift.
Right. Yes. So I got really good at telling the story, right? And I, at the end, I would say, hey, the first 5 ladies who come to the back of the room will get a free discovery session with me, you know, and I had women literally run to the back of the room to get their discovery session. But here was the interesting part. When I asked them later, when I got on the phone call, what was it that drew them to wanting to have this conversation? Most of them couldn't remember what the conversation was supposed to be about. All they remembered was something about how you were up there in your story. I want to be that. I want to do that.
Exactly.
Right. So it was like, I had a missing piece, which was how do I make that relevant to them? Or how do I help them understand how I can help get them there? You know, that was the piece that I was missing, but it was such a valuable lesson because I feel like I did naturally, you know, that piece of sharing my story in a powerful way that really helped people see who I am and what I've moved through, but I didn't know how to close it.
Yeah.
You know,
You figured it out
learn to get better at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's huge. I mean, I directed self-revelatory performances for many years with teenagers where they would come up and they would share their personal stories on stage. And it was such a rich, like they were so incredibly brave. Like I just, to this day, like I would love to go back and do that. It was like 20 plus years ago that I did that, but it's so powerful. It's so powerful, you know, and I know that we've talked about this, you know, like I said, Dorina and I are in a coaching program together, and, you know, we had this moment with Dorina where she's so brilliant and so amazing. And, but we felt some of that distance from her. And then when she dropped into her ugly duckling story with us, it was like, there she is. Like there was like this final barrier that got broken through, and we were able to really be with you and really feel you and connect with you. And that was such a powerful moment and powerful example, right, of how our story touches people.
And again, we are in the limbic system, the emotional system. And the more you can do with that, oh boy, learn how to do that. You're in fantastic shape.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you become an incredible leader. If you communicate from the heart instead of the brain, if you will. Instead of the neocortex. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you, again, the more work you do on yourself, the more you know yourself, the easier it is to kind of go back and forth between the two, right? To be able to be in that process of like really thinking it through, you know, using the secretary part of your brain to like plan things out, you know, here's the logistics of my speech or whatever, but then letting that all go and just really being able to drop in and share from your heart it's just so powerful. I mean, we just both watched Les Brown do that. He was training us in our keynote speeches, right? And just watching him like take a couple of pieces of information from us, a person in our lives that we respected, a moment of learning, you know, and then just out of nowhere create these powerful, like amazing 5-minute speeches. The man is a genius, but he clearly has this ability to just like filter that information and get right down, like you said, to that limbic system and speak to that limbic system through metaphor, through quotes, through story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And you know, this is something that can be learned.
Exactly.
Aside from just, you know, knowing the archetypes and the mind types and your wealth flow style, there are moving towards and moving away emotions. You learn what they are and you learn how to use them. And all similar sorts of things. And once you do it often enough, it becomes so ingrained that it happens naturally. And that's what you want.
Exactly. And that's mastery.
Yeah.
Mastery is when you don't have to think about it anymore.
That's right.
It's just natural. I remember in my therapy program, you know, one of the first things I remember hearing was, yeah, it's going to take you 10 years before you really feel like you're a master at this. You're going to feel like you don't know what the hell you're doing for the first 10 years. And there was a part of me that was like, oh God, you know, the perfectionist in me was freaking out, you know, but there was another part of me, right? There was another part of me that was like, oh, thank God, you know, give me a little bit of permission to screw things up and fuddle through, you know, and make mistakes. And it's funny because I've been a therapist now for over 15 years, you know, and it's true. It's like, whoever it is, bring them on in, we'll play. And I'm so much more comfortable, like, yeah, this isn't going to be a good fit, and that's okay. You know, here's somebody else I can refer you to, you know, without the ego getting involved and, you know, all of that. But yeah, it's so innate, right? Like I don't have to think about being a therapist.
It never goes away either. Once you've got it, it's there permanently. So this is work you have to do once.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, you keep getting better and better and better and better, obviously. But to get to that mastery level, once you're there, it's, you know, even playing the piano, I haven't played in years, but with a little bit of practice, I'll be back to where I was.
Exactly.
So it's more of a decoration in the living room instead of something that gets played. Anyway, piece of beautiful furniture.
I love that.
Yeah.
So Dorina, what would you say for, you know, you started the conversation with, you know, how you're aware that a lot of women are very powerful, but they don't step into it, or they don't know how necessarily to really step into their power. So other than, you know, the systems that you've kind of put together to help them walk through and like find those essence pieces, right? And put them on the table and take a look at them and create something with them. What else is it that women need to do to really recognize their power, to recognize like what's innate in them is powerful simply because it's innate?
Yeah. Well, what has to happen is people need to get in touch with, they need to get in touch at the spirit level, their reason for being. And good coaching will pull that out of you.
Right.
Once you get at that fundamental reason for being, and it's not to teach archetypes, okay? That's not a reason for being.
Really? No?
Yeah.
Shit.
Okay. Yeah. Crap. You know, a reason for being. I mean, my reason for being is I am here to inspire people to become the person they need to be in order to live their true purpose. Because you need to become another person in order to live your true purpose. Because if you're not living your true purpose, you're not that person yet. So you need to become in order. So anyway, so you've got to get at that spirit level reason for being. From there, you can develop an identity statement. I'm $1 million business owner, or I'm a rock star hair salon owner, or I'm a, you know, whatever.
Right.
And when you get stuck in things, you go back to that identity statement and ask yourself, well, as $1 million business owner, how would I handle this situation? Instead of sitting there going, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, you know, and you become a puddle of jelly. Yeah, there you go, Jello. Yeah. Anyway, and once you have that identity statement, who you believe yourself to be, then you have the belief systems. Do you believe that you can become a leader? Oh, other people can become leaders, but I can't. Do you believe it's possible? Yeah, for other people. Well, why is it important for you to become a leader? And you go backwards, you know, back to that reason for being, and then back into the identity. So it all goes back to identifying who you really are and why you're really here. And once you know that, then I'm a $1 million business owner. All of a sudden you're standing up straighter, you're walking with more confidence, and you're behaving more like a leader or somebody who can become an attractor of the right people.
Yeah.
And this isn't only for people who have businesses. This is, you know, for if you want to be a good parent, you know, you want to be a leader. You don't want to be, you know, reacting to everything that's happening. You know, you want to lead your kids.
Yeah, it's something that I actually work a lot with teenagers on, you know, because they haven't done, you know, they haven't had enough life experience to do a values inventory,
Right.
You know, so I often will lead them through values inventory statements and questions, right, and have them really hone in on that so that they can ask themselves, like, this decision I'm about to make, does this match who I just told myself that I am?
Exactly.
And if it doesn't, like, what do I want to do about that? You know, do I want to set up a boundary and say no? Do I want to go ahead and engage with it because I can convince myself I'm going to learn something from it? Do I want to avoid it because it's not who I think myself to be? And it's just it's so rich to help them because they've never thought about it, you know, like what their values are. I have people in my office who are in their 40s and 50s who've never sat down to really think about their values, you know?
And exactly. And that's another piece I forgot to mention: loves and talents and values.
Yes.
You know, the loves and talents give you some color, right?
Yes,
you
exactly.
know, it makes you interesting, right?
Yes.
But that's absolutely critical. So you know, back to the question, really the answer is you got to figure out why you're doing it and who you really are, and then all of a sudden you become a leader. You don't decide, I'm going to be a leader, now what should I go lead? You know, that's not how to do it, right? You got to do it in the opposite order, reverse order.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
inner work, that's always the answer. Inner work.
It's so true. It's so true. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of, it's a challenge. I kind of feel like there's this part of me that really wants to call out those of us who are not doing the work, you know, and just, you know, and then I have to remember everybody's on their own journey, and all I can do is lead by example, right? That the interview I did earlier today, you know, a lot of our conversation was around that. As healers, you know, like, I cannot take someone any further than I've been willing to go myself. And so if I haven't allowed myself to grapple with my own pain, you know, or really do any of these things I'm asking my clients to do to work on their stuff, what the hell am I doing asking them to do it?
Right.
You know, I can't energetically hold that space if I haven't done it myself, you know? And so I love the fact that so much of your work is also like just really doing these inventories. Like, have you stopped and thought about these parts of yourself yet? Have you really gone in there and you know, and what I know from having done many of those kind of inventories is just this like relief. I just feel this constant relief of like, oh, thank God. Okay. You know, like, I wasn't making that shit up. It's true. It's real. You know, like that really is how I show up in the world, or my personality, or my, you know, my archetype, or, you know, whatever, whatever it might be.
And you want to be congruent. And it's funny because even if somebody doesn't, I got cats. That's not my dog.
No, it's my dog.
I got one cat right down there. But even if somebody doesn't know you, they can tell if you're not being congruent.
Oh, yes.
You know, so you've got to be internally consistent and congruent with who you really are. And if you don't know who you are, that's a problem.
Absolutely. And that's, I got to say, I'm so blessed that I worked with teenagers for so many years, because man, if there's a population that will teach you about being congruent and being in integrity, it's the teenagers. They can smell that shit from a mile away.
I know.
And I had to learn, like, don't say it if I can't back it up 100%.
That's right.
You know, and be okay not being in the know, and just saying, like, I can't answer that question. Actually, I don't really know. You know, oh my goodness.
It's like, don't smoke while you have a cigarette in your mouth or in your hand.
Hypocrite.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I love it. So let me think. You had a couple of things. I think we hit on pretty much everything that we had talked about before. Actually, there was a phrase that you used. So you talked about how how did you put it? We attract, how did you put it? We attract who we're being, I think is how you put it. So the example that you used was like, if I am a people pleaser, I'm going to tend to attract people pleasers to myself, right?
Yep.
And not that that's necessarily a bad thing. If that's the market I'm working on, if that's what I'm
Right.
seeking to master, then that's great, right? I'm definitely telegraphing who it is I want to be working with. But if that's not who I want to be working with, if I have actually overcome my people pleasing, or I think I have, then I guess my question is, you know, who now that I feel into who I want to attract, what do I have to do to be?
You have to become
that
person. Exactly. Exactly. You need to become the person that will attract the people, those people, that category of people. And if you see yourself as inherently not worth very much,
right,
you're going to attract people who aren't going to pay you much. They're not going to value your services. And you're doing it to yourself, but you don't realize you're doing it to yourself.
It's so true. And I think, you know, you really hit on something, I think, for beginning business owners and women who've never run a business, you know, who've never hit a particular income level other than the job, the job that they had before. Stepping into that identity when they haven't actually lived it yet. Right? And like, how do we do that kind of projection of like, I have everything inside of me that I need to be that, but it's not what's in my bank account right now. Right. And how do we cross that bridge, you know, because there's an argument in both directions. There's an argument that like, why are you saying that you're going to take people to 7 figures when you're making $50,000 a year? Like, you don't get to do that. And then there are other people who are like, actually, if you have the skills to pull that out of other people, right, then why wouldn't you do that?
Of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me how we can, and I think that's where for you, like the guided visualization, right? The like embodying, how would I be in my body? What would I think? What would I do differently if I was that 7-figure earner?
Yeah, and in fact, I talk a lot about active and creative visualization, and it's. I'm a skier. I also used to race swimming, and it's used in sports all the time.
Exactly.
Active visualization, you feel yourself going through those gates before you've done it. So you can't run the course before you run the course, but you memorize that course and you've skied through it so many times in your mind. And in fact, they've done studies, and even the muscles that you need to use actually twitch with the movements you're imagining. And the subconscious cannot tell the difference between something actively visualized and something that really happened.
I fucking love you, Dorina. I cannot tell you how many times I tell people this. I mean, as a hypnotherapist, you know, I mean, that is the metaphor that I use all day long. I can smell a flower. These parts of my brain light up. I pretend to smell a flower 20 minutes later.
Same thing.
Same parts of my brain light up. It has no idea I'm not actually doing it.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. It's true. And that is how you do it.
Yes.
That is how you become that person. You are that person. I remember before I moved down to the beach, I always wanted to live on the beach, right? Before I moved down to the beach, I'd be walking down the street, but I was walking on that beach. Damn it. I saw the water. I smelled I often was walking near the ocean, but not on the beach because it was too cold because it was New England. And now I'm in Florida, which is fantastic. And also when I got my Jaguar, I had my Volkswagen Scirocco, nice black leather interior, nice little car, but I wanted a Jaguar. This was like 1986 or 85 or something. And I'm driving along and I could smell the leather because I had leather, but I could see the cat on the hood. And one day I went to the Jaguar dealer and I bought a Jaguar XJ6.
There you go.
And I also wanted a big diamond, right? And lo and behold, same thing, you know, and now you know, I have some nice stuff.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. And I think that, again, that's a place specifically for women where things can get sticky.
Yeah.
Right? Can I claim, can I own that I have these desires? Does it make me a bad person that I want a big ass diamond, or that I want, you know, this particular car? And it's like, you know, just like dismantling all of these beliefs that we hold about wealth, about opportunity, you know, just all of these things. And really it all, for me, comes back to ourselves, right? Like I may not have the same dreams that you do, but I have my dreams. And if I can visualize them, if I can feel them, if I can get into the emotional state of those things, they're much more likely to show up in my life, because my subconscious is going, ooh, where is it? Okay, let's find it, right? And I'm going to see it when it's right there, because half the time we're not even seeing the opportunities that are right in front of our face.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not in alignment with it, right? We're not
exactly. And, you know, if you're in a position where you're having trouble taking action, well, the problem I can talk is probably at there's probably an issue with your beliefs. Right. Okay, so you got to work on your beliefs, and if you have a problem with your beliefs, the issue is in, you know, the spirit level. So you got to go further inward, or you know, deeper, to get at what is really stopping you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful. Well, Dorina, any last nuggets for us? Anything else that you feel calling to share before we close up?
I am running regularly now a Brand Your Brilliance free 5-day program, running it about every 8 weeks, and it lives in a private Facebook group.
Okay.
And the name of the group is Circle of Elite Entrepreneurs.
Okay. Circle of Elite Entrepreneurs.
Yes. And if somebody, and of course, you can reach me through my website, dorinalanza.com. And anybody that would like to learn more about, one of the bonuses is going to be, you're going to get to take the Archetype Assessment, and you're going to get all kinds of goodies to learn how to implement some of this stuff. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And,
awesome.
Yeah, people like that. So I wanted to share that if people would like to join.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Anyway, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, many blessings to you, my dear. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so appreciative of you.
Good. Okay. We will see you soon.
All righty.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.